view the way search engines work to find websites or blogs or whatever, or content, and kind of rank that content following that. And what you should consider when building a blog or site to ensure that that happens in the most efficient way possible.
Is this available on?
Find it. And then using this understanding to ensure a website or any digital asset ranks well. Primarily we're talking about your domain names here, so from the discussions I've had with people through there, a lot of people are using blogger.com or WordPress at the moment to host your sites. My first recommendation would be to set yourself up with your own domain name, primarily. It makes your content a lot more enticing to Google. It means you own that content, you can monetize it, you can do what the hell you want with it if it's on your own domain. If you're on something like blogger.com or something like WordPress, you are slightly at their mercy and you are automatically slightly it's a slightly tougher task to get that sort of a site to rank as well as a site that's sitting on its own domain, basically.
That's a good question. There's a difference between WordPress.org and .com, right? Is
Yeah.
.org more hosting as well?
So WordPress.org, I think I've got this the way around. One of them is the blogger.com style blog
That's
or
.com.
blogspot.
Yeah.
That's .com. Yeah. So WordPress.org is just purely support for people that are using WordPress on their own domain names.
Okay.
So WordPress.org, you'll get all of the details,
So that's
all of the themes that you can use and stuff like that. But yeah, there's always been a little bit of confusion between the two properties because they're such isolations.
If you have a .wordpress.com site, you can map your domain name to that.
Yeah.
Is that going to be the same effect as having it hosted elsewhere?
So when you say map, you mean?
So if you can build a website on WordPress.com,
Yeah.
and it will be called integral.wordpress.com.
Yeah.
But if you do own a URL, you can map it so that
To the WordPress.com site.
But will that take away from your?
Well, I mean that's fine. That's an advisable thing to do because then you can start peddling that domain name basically.
Yeah,
and redirect.
it's not bad. It's not a bad thing.
No, I mean it's a good thing. I would say it'd be better to do it either way around and actually have the content that you put on WordPress going back through to your main domain name, basically. And there's two ways to do that. I've read quite a few things about trying to redirect WordPress through to a new site that you create on your own, which I think there's a few hacks around doing it, but I'm not sure WordPress is particularly happy about you redirecting people away from their domain name. But what I would probably start to think about doing is if you're moving on to a separate domain name, is to start to take the content, reproduce it on that new site, but also on those old pages that you've removed content from, if it's possible to redirect them, which I'm honestly not 100% sure, right? But in that case, redirect it. Or the other thing to do would be just to add a little bit of text saying this has been moved to here, with a link through to the new page.
So that would be better than having your URL to your blogger, for instance.
Yeah.
It would be better to have your. Okay.
It's always better to have your own domain name. And from many points of view, from a legal point of view, it's yours. Then you own that content. I think you're a little bit at the mercy to Blogger or WordPress or whatever they might want to do in the future. You don't know that their commercial intent for the long run. So it's about ownership, but it's also a psychological thing as well. From my point of view, having your own domain name it's your own website. It's yours. It automatically on a business card, from my point of view, looks better if somebody's got their own domain name. It shows a certain amount of kind of you setting up your own infrastructure, building your own brand, basically. Does that make sense?
What's the best place? Where would you buy a domain name from? What would be the site?
There's a load of sites that do it. GoDaddy is one that I'm sure a lot of you have heard of. Where you can go on there, you can register a domain name, you can add on hosting. So
I've had really bad experience with GoDaddy.
Yeah.
Experience.
I've had really good.
Well, I'm 123 reg actually.
Yeah.
123
On a daily basis.
I think if we went through the whole route, everybody would have a problem with one of these companies because they are a little bit ropey, some of them. However, a lot of them do make it very easy to go on, sign up for a domain name, add on hosting, add on a WordPress installation, which a lot of the time is just one-click installation. It's dead easy. Within a couple of hours, you've got your own domain name sorted and you can start to develop that. And I definitely recommend putting that investment in.
Can I just, sorry, because I've used both GoDaddy and 123 and had one-on-one and had not good experience with them. There's a small, tiny company called Swift Internet. If anybody does need to sign up, they give really good support. So.
Okay. I thought it was 1, 2, 3 have always been pretty good for me.
Yeah,
Okay, great.
Yeah. But no, I'm sure, yeah, everybody has their quibbles with these
Is it one
guys.
of the keys to using a UK company
Yeah.
rather than an American company?
Yeah.
Do you know what? It's not massively important. So I think, for example, 1, 2, 3 reg, you can, there's elements of that where you can move the hosting around. In kind of
From the legal side, it's important, no?
potentially from a legal point of view, yeah. I mean, I'm talking strictly from a search engine traffic point of view. You won't be penalised for hosting elsewhere. So, for example, a lot of people's sites now are hosted in Iceland. Like that seems to be like the big, huge hub for where these large hosting companies base their servers because of the cooling of the water there or something. I don't know. But it used to be that it was always better to host your site in the country where it was targeting. So .co.uk should be hosted in the UK. Google are wise enough now to realise that people host their sites in other countries for financial reasons and they can't be penalised within their local market for that. So it's not massively important, but yeah, maybe go for UK hosting if you were trying to kind of get that tiny little bit of incremental benefit. Go on.
I was just going to say that I have bought my domain with a registrar
Okay.
and have my hosting with a different company.
Yep. So,
And I just sort of say, my main thing that I say to people is, you know, you've got quite a lot of flexibility and you can shop around and you can change things quite easily.
Yeah.
And if you're not happy with the services, you can shift and change.
Absolutely.
You're not compelled to stay with the same hosting company.
Yeah.
And it's kind of working out whether their services fit your needs.
Yeah.
I've done a lot with WordPress, and you know, they can be hosted. You know, that there's no restrictions really on hosting WordPress at all.
No, not at
Yeah,
all.
so
No. WordPress.
You've got an open choice.
Yeah, WordPress is brilliant. I'm sure a lot of you are kind of converts to it already, but yeah, WordPress is it just makes web development so easy. It means that you don't have to pay extortionate web development fees as well. So yeah. But yeah, as you say, you can move your hosting around. You can have your domain name in one place, you can have your hosting in another place, you can have your emails in another place. It's really up to you, and it can, if you've never done it before, it can be a little bit like, what the hell do I do here? I have no idea where to start. But it really is a case of just you can take a jump from GoDaddy or 123, follow their instructions, and they make it very easy for you to do that. Okay, so why is SEO important? So who do we really address when we're talking about SEO, especially within sort of today's market? This is currently the split of search engine share within the UK. So obviously primarily google.co.uk are the market leaders by an absolute enormous percentage. When I'm talking about search engine optimization, or even when we're having conversations with clients or whoever, it's always talking about Google. It's great from my point of view because it makes my job a little bit easier and I have to really think about one search engine. The incremental benefits that we get from the other search engines tend to follow anyway if we're doing okay on Google. And yeah, for me, it's quite an interesting one to watch. Bing.com are actually growing market share. You wouldn't believe it by looking at that, but Bing.com are probably the biggest competitor to Google at the moment. They power the Facebook search feature, for example. They have a better relationship with Twitter, for example. So Bing definitely one to watch, but primarily when I talk about SEO or a search engine, I'm talking about Google, basically. And why is SEO specifically important in relation to Google's rankings? Here we've got a classic search result for Samsung Galaxy S3. This is sort of changing a little bit in the last few months, but you can see here primarily the green area is the natural area, and we've got this the red area on the side, which is the paid for area. So any PPC, AdWords stuff that you do will appear in that area. We're primarily concerned today with this area in the centre here, which is the natural search results. What we're actually starting to see now is that Google are kind of, I hate them sometimes, I really do, but basically they're pushing our natural search rankings down a little bit, which is because of the pressure from their shareholders to drive more revenue, and they announced that they were going to grow as much as expected this quarter, and obviously that impacted their share price, and what we saw almost immediately following that was that the paid listings started to push all the organic listings down a little bit. So I'm hoping that they don't do that anymore, and I'm not left with a load of positions on page 2, which might be very good. But still, for a lot of searches, it's only the very kind of commercialised searches where you get all of these paid listings are on the outside. Still, for a vast percentage of searches, there are no paid listings on there. So a lot of searches that are being done now are more navigational, they're more kind of geographic, or they're more kind of focused on a brand name. It's only for the very generic commercial searches where we get this kind of large paid area. But you can see from the heat map here that still, and this is one of the problems that Google have within their monetization, is how do they pull people away from the natural search results and focus them on the paid results. And I'm on the other side, how do I pull people into the natural search results and pull them away from the paid ones. You can see from this, which is a little bit old now to be fair, but eye tracking, from an eye tracking point of view, people immediately jump to the first 1, 2, 3 listings. And really being in the top 3 is there's a massive jump from traffic from position 1, there's a massive jump from traffic from position 3 to 5. So really, if you're not in the top 3, you're going to get a very small percentage of that potential traffic. Just a few of the breakdowns of the positions there. So first 42%, second 12%, third 8%. So these are very average-based searches. Obviously, it depends on if it's a branded search, 95% will go through the first listing. For more generic searches, that's what we're looking at. So you can see that from 1 to 2 is a massive jump and can mean a lot of different traffic levels coming into your site, basically. It's a fairly obvious chart here, but essentially when you go up in the rankings, your traffic goes up. I think this is a chart for a keyword, a banking keyword for Halifax, and it's fairly obvious. Over a period of about 6 months, we drove the rankings up from page 1. Immediately you can see the huge jump as people, as we move from page 2 to page 1. Most people don't look at page 2. There's a very small percentage of people that look at page 2. Most people will actually search again if they don't find what they want on page 1. So if you're looking at your positions and I'll move up from 16th to 14th, brilliant, I wouldn't expect to see any traffic from that, even on very high volume keywords. It's good to kind of be analytical and to take a view of how your rankings are improving, but the real milestone for a ranking is when it gets onto the top page. So, how do search engines actually rank content? So, technically, how is it working, basically? So simply put, search engines crawl the web to understand what web pages are about in order to serve relevant lists of pages to people searching the web. So when we say crawl the web, they essentially navigate through the World Wide Web via links interlinking between sites. Links are essentially the roads between websites. They're the route in and the route out of your website, which Google follows to discover content. If you've not got a link to a page, Google won't be able to discover it. As simple as that. There are other little ways, that are tricks that they use to find content, such as, let's see, potentially if you post a link in a Gmail email, for example, they potentially will scrape that and find content another way. But primarily, what we need to think about is building links to pages, and this can be internal links from your own site or external links from somebody else's site. That's the way for Google to find pages, to start to rank those pages in the search results. So what do search engines do? So primarily, they're trying to understand exactly what the searching intent is. And to be fair, this is something they're not very good at. Google, sorry?
Yeah, can I just ask, you've explained SEO really well, but as you go deeper into search engines, could you just cover off the basic differences between SEO and SEM as well? I can cover that off very simply now. So SEO is part of SEM. Search engine marketing essentially is any way to market yourself on a search engine. So submitting to Google Places is part of SEM, PPC is part of SEM, SEO is part of SEM, Google product feeds is part of SEM. So essentially SEM is that catch-all for anything Google or search related. Okay. So once again in the UK, SEM is 85.5%. Or more, I can't remember how much.
Yeah. So when we talk about SEM, it's the same comment. We're primarily talking about Google. In fact, SEM is a little bit more kind of focused on Yahoo and Bing because they also have ad platforms as well and their own way of marketing on those sites. Which, if you've got the budget there, it's worth using those as well. Yeah. SEO is probably the one that's more focused on Google. So Google, what they'll try and do is they'll look at the search phrase used and they'll try and associate, or they'll try and find content that associates with that search. Now, to do that, they look at the keywords used. It's worth pointing out that they don't know what the keyword means. Google's not AI, it's an algorithm at the end of the day, it's digital processes. When they see London, they don't know that it's the capital of the UK. They're trying to make steps towards that, but really, they just see a binary code. And what they essentially do is match that piece of binary with a piece of binary on a website, which also represents London. So it's essentially matching symbols with symbols. What they will have an awareness of is where you searched from, so you'll start to see geographic results more if you're on the phone, because it has GPS in it, so it's more reliable. But if you set your location in Google, then they will use that to produce a result that's relevant to you, that's local to you. The device search, also whether it's a phone. Previous search queries, so your search history, they'll start to look at that as well. And recommended content from friends, so this is this inclusion of social media elements to the search results as well, sort of Twitter feeds and that sort of stuff. And then
sorry, just on that point, are any, do you find any of the social platforms are more influential?
Yeah, in fact, actually, I mean, it's probably a little bit inaccurate talking about Twitter in the concept of Google, because they've actually got a pretty black relationship with Twitter, and they're not using each other as well as they were.
Yeah.
Google have gone down this route of Google Plus. Basically, everything's Google Plus, Google Plus, Google Plus.
Yeah.
The little plus ones next to the search results. There's people's Google Plus pages being reduced in the search results as well.
So it makes sense then for us to all be on Google Plus and using everyone the plus one apps.
Absolutely.
So I just have ignored it.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, because I've ignored it because I don't like the fact that they're plugging it so hard.
Yeah.
It kind of frustrates me a little bit. But from a search point of view, I think it will get more and more down to the point where you need to have a Google Plus profile. Yeah.
And this is for sort of company brands as well. I mean, other
Company
Google Plus
brands
is more
as well.
individual.
Well, I mean, you can have a personal page. I mean, what I would be advising is that anybody that's kind of sort of producing websites and producing content starts to think about a brand as well, and starts to think about going down that route of building your own brand entity and having a brand page on Google Plus.
Yeah, that's the question. You can put a brand page in Google
Yeah,
Plus.
you can have a company page. Same as on Facebook.
Can I just check, when you're talking about brand, you're also talking in content, you're talking about, so say for instance we're talking about a school, just say as an example, would you then have content that doesn't necessarily have school in it but has information related to, I don't know, 5-year-olds, or do you link your content? I don't know how Google kind of matches, when you say your content, I just want to check that how Google kind of decides what's relevant and how that links.
So Google, I mean, Google, I'm trying to sort of think what you mean. When I said build content, I'm primarily meaning that the more content that you have on your website, the more opportunity there is for Google to match searches with the words within that content. So it's essentially, Google works in a very textual world. It doesn't really see any images. It doesn't have a vast knowledge of what's in a video, stuff like that. But what it does do is it sees text. And essentially what it's doing here is it's matching text with text. So text on your site and text within a search box. The more textual content that you have, the more opportunities to match, essentially. So if I'm talking about developing content, what I'm meaning is that you will cover more search results by having more natural variations of text.
So it doesn't matter what I'm trying to say, what I was trying to say is trying to think about the type of content. Like, so it doesn't really matter. Is it more about the volume and the amount of different search terms?
It's I mean, I suppose it depends on what you're trying to target. If you're trying to produce content which answers the question of a very small group of people, so the people within the catchment area of the school with, I don't know, open times after school clubs, stuff like that, then that would be advisable. That's not volume-based sort of content production, that's needs-based content production, which is all good, and it means that if anybody in that area searches for after-school club or whatever school, then they will get served that content in theory, and that will complete their search journey, if you like. Does that? So we can catch up afterwards if you like. Okay.
You're talking about text, matching text and binary. What about images? Do you not value images for the SEO then?
Well, images, I mean, images have always got value, obviously. I mean, it'd be a very boring internet if there was no images. But primarily, Google takes the content of the image from the alt tag that you add to that image. So, which is why it's always advisable to have alt tags or alternative text, as we call it, which reflects what's in the image. Because essentially, you're telling Google what's in that image. If you imagine that Google is a blind user, so I don't know if any of you ever use text readers, but for people that can't see as clearly or are blind, they use a text reader that will go through the page and it will verbalise every single element of that page. Google really works in a similar sort of way.
But what do you think of people putting their web addresses in images and things like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that wouldn't make any sense to me. Why?
That's speculation that Google's learning to read images.
Unless you had your web address printed within the image, and then it'd be relevant because your web address is within that image. But
that's what I'm saying, people are starting to put their web addresses within images.
And that's probably a copyright thing more than anything, just to make sure that they retain some ownership of people who steal that image. But I mean, I think that I wouldn't put a web address in an alt tag, for example, but it just wouldn't really make sense. Really, you should have something like that. I don't know, a guy wearing a hat. That's what you should have, very descriptive.
But the best way to get Google to pick up the image is to have the images with file names, right?
File names as well, yes.
Yeah.
You have descriptive file names and descriptive alt text, and then also the content around that image should reflect that, which it will naturally if you're producing sort of good quality content.
But equally, don't give it a file name if you don't want it to pick up images of your kids.
I mean, if you don't, I mean, you have to have a file name. It has to be.
Yeah, but it can be gobbledygook.
It can be numbers instead of, Aaron.
There's probably more specific ways, like locking your full images folder on your site if you wanted to stop those images appearing completely. You have to be more thorough than that, to be fair. Yeah.
I'm hoping I'm not taking you away from what you wanted to talk about. It's on my mind when we're talking about Google profile, Google business pages, Google places. What I'm not clear about, and I don't know, whether there's an easy answer to this. Wasn't there an attempt by Google to associate authors with an original piece of writing?
That's right, yeah.
And an opportunity for you to record on your personal profile your authorship on your website, on your blog.
Yeah.
And then there's a bit of confusion about how do you do that.
Okay.
Is that still the case? Can you still do that?
Yeah, you can still do that, yeah. So every time you see the little thumbnails appearing next to people's posts in the search results, they're people who've established authorship, ownership of that content. The easiest way to do that is to set yourself up with a Google Plus profile. And then if you're using WordPress, there are plugins which will do this very easily for you. But essentially, it's just a small bit of code which connects your post and your blog pages to that Google Plus profile. And then what it does is it establishes that Google Plus profile is owned by you, this content is produced by you, it pulls in elements of that Google profile into every bit of content that you produce following that. And all you have to do is post your Google profile address within that content that you post, and it will automatically establish that link. That's a very simple way to do it, but I mean, it's not much more complicated than that, and there's a lot of information online and a lot of kind of Q&As about how people set that up and how easy it is to do. The beauty of using something like WordPress is a lot of these things are just in plugins where if you just one-click install them, it's done for you.
But you can do that on your personal profile, but not on a business page. Is that right?
Yeah, because you can't. You're not an author as a business. It's a personal thing, which is why one of the things that we'll recommend, sort of within my work, is for companies like Lloyd's TSP or whoever that we're working with to actually set themselves up with authors. So a kind of Martin Lewis version, but for a bank, if you know what I mean. So there's a good example of an author taking ownership of a brand, basically. And that's what I'm saying when I reference Google looking more at branding and sort of genuine kind of business sense, if you like, and that's what they're doing to facilitate that for you.
Thank you.
Always. Okay, a lot of questions, so I'm going to scoot through pretty fast. But yeah, so obviously we've got to kind of quickly summarise exactly how Google goes about associating searches with content. Understanding how Google finds that content, it's essentially, as I mentioned before, it's about thinking about the world as the World Wide Web as a lot of interconnected content connected via links, and Google traverses those links and finds new content, it crawls all the links in that content, it finds the content from that content, and so on and so on and so on and so on, until it's been around a whole lot and it's come back to itself. And it's continually doing that. And in fact, it's not just Google, there are a lot of crawlers that are continually crawling the web, visiting people's sites, leaving again. So Yahoo, MSN obviously have their own. Googlebot has about 3 or 4 different crawlers, some that look purely for video content, some that are just the standard web crawlers, some that look just for mobile content. And essentially what they're scrapers, they're the same as the site that scraped content and steals it. Google is essentially the world's biggest scraper site, if you want to look at it that way. And which is why it's so important to not only link out to good quality content, which is something that people have a little bit of inertia to in the past. They don't want to link out, they want to keep all the links coming in. There's nothing wrong with linking out to good content, it's natural, it's what people want. And there's an element of thinking that they might reward you a little bit for linking out to good sources as well.
Just a question, syndicated content. How does,
basically.
Yeah, how do you, and this on our website, syndicate content, quite credible sources.
Yeah.
Do you think that has a positive or a negative effect on how Google indexes those pages?
Essentially, if you've got a copy of a page, the theory is that Google will always reward the original version of that page. How it decides on the original version is where the question mark comes in, because one thing that was an example recently of a kind of very large Dutch site that essentially sold products for a lot of very smaller sites. It was like kind of one kind of huge affiliate hub. All of their pages were blocked to the search engines, but they unblocked them all overnight. Because their website was so much bigger and more authoritative than all of this content that they were republishing, it immediately outranked all of these local shop websites. And of course they were absolutely because every sale that they were making was going through an affiliate commission, and they didn't like that. So that's an example of when, there's a certain amount of just playing Google's game and knowing how they work and ensuring that you're not giving content to people who have got higher authority than you, basically, because they might actually cannibalise your activity a little bit. But yeah, it's hard to. I mean, you can syndicate content quite well if you add extra value to it. So there's nothing wrong with pulling in a list of posts from another site, but also writing your own review of that site, for example. So just adding more to essentially copy content and giving it some extra value will help you out in the long run. Yeah.
Just really quickly, will putting one of these Google Plus ownership, where you can establish ownership on Google Plus for your post, will that stop phishing exercises then and all that? Where they basically
whether they
where they're actually trawling your
oh right, will that stop people stealing your content?
Reproducing it.
Unfortunately not. They'll just steal it and rip out the authorship element to it.
So it doesn't actually protect.
The good thing is Google have done a lot to stop these activities being as effective in the last sort of 6 or 7 months. So anybody that's scraping it, having these huge copy content sites, now are finding it very hard to perform in the rankings, basically. And Google will keep putting steps in place to stop these kind of malicious activities working. So it should be less and less of an issue for you guys. Okay. So what are the ranking factors? I think it's probably worth clarifying that one thing that gets bandied about quite a lot is that there are 200 ranking factors. We could probably sit here for the next couple of days and end up with a list of 200 that we were pretty confident were the final list of 200. That doesn't necessarily mean that we all now know how to get to number 1 for a search term or whatever. What we don't know is how those ranking factors work together. And that's the elements of Google's algorithm or equation, if you like, which we have no idea whether they're putting pluses, minuses, divisions, whatever, in between those individual ranking factors. We know that using keywords in a title tag's good, we know that using keywords in heading, in content, we know that having a bit of video content on the site is preferable by Google. They like to see rich media on the site, image, alt tags, things like that. We know that they're all good, but what we don't know is how they interplay, which ones multiply each other's, which ones are damping factors to others, etc. So that's why it is a little bit of an art based on science, and that's why it's a little bit tricky to discuss SEO in some cases, because there is this big element of the unknown. Yep.
Just on video content and rich media, how should we be tagging any of our video content, and where should we have that? I mean, we've got a YouTube channel, for example, for our company, which I sometimes use to embed the links into our channel in our blogs, but then I don't know how to tag it properly to make sure that Google actually recognises it.
Yeah.
So, any tips?
Yeah, it could be its own session on its own, to be honest with you, SEO. But I mean, just using all of the stuff that's on YouTube. For a start, YouTube's the best place to put a video, and then embedding it on your site, I'd say, after that. Surrounding it by good quality textual content that's relevant to the video is always going to help. Using their tags and basically their tag facility on the site will always help. Yeah. So having a lot of relevant tags in there without necessarily spamming the hell out of them would be a good option. 10 minutes, Jesus, I've only done about 10 slides. 30 slides to go.
Ouch.
There's a little lesson to be learned there, isn't there? I'll talk to you later about the video stuff, sorry.
All right.
Okay, this is probably the best slide in the presentation because it breaks it down very simply into how you guys should be viewing SEO. This is the formula, and this is our representation of very, very basic version of the formula that Google use. 20% site-specific, so 20% of, say, the score to be number 1 for a ranking is based on your site structure. So when I'm talking about using your own domain names, I'm talking about things like that. I'm not saying use WordPress because of the way it uses categories and tags to give things meaning. That's what I'm talking about when we talk about site content into silos that logically make sense. Things like that. Categorization, making sure things are in the right category. And making sure the site isn't too slow. If you buy some really cheap, crappy hosting, it might be a little bit slow, and it might not do you any favours. Slow sites aren't as good as fast sites. That's the long and short of it. Page-specific elements. This is more focusing on the content, the actual individual pages. So this is when you start to look at including video content, including keywords in the title tag, things like that. Writing content that reflects what people are searching for online, that sort of stuff. And yeah, producing fresh content that's got a lot of comments, a lot of user-generated content, things like that are always good. Unique images. I was talking to somebody before who produces her own images. Every blog post she writes, she creates and takes her own photos for it, which is great. Unique content is always going to be good. And then the off-site factors, which you'll see is the vast majority, and there is no limit to how far you can go with this, basically, is the number of links and the quality of links you've got coming into your site. So that is what will amplify these two aspects. These are more checkboxes, that's more continual growth.
When you talk about links, how important is the PR factor of the site that's linking into you? I mean, does it have to be PR3 and above, PR4 and above?
I wouldn't even think about it. PageRank is one metric on its own. For example, if you were going to get a link to the BBC, it'd have a very high page rank and it'd be a great link, but it might be completely irrelevant. In reality, there are these other factors on here. If we think link authority basically is page rank, that's what we mean when we say link authority. But there's the anchor text used, so you want to be linking with keywords which are relevant to the target that you're publishing. There's the link relevancy, so you want to make sure that you're putting links on sites that are relevant to your site, sit within the same topic. Google knows when a site's a fine on the site and another site's a fine on the site. So it's ensuring that you're appearing on sites that are within your context. Link velocity, so how many links you're growing over time is important as well. You've got to look naturally, you've got to be getting links from a variety of different places, across a variety of different kind of verticals, if you like. Social signals as well, so that's another aspect of link building nowadays, which is more recent, which is obviously sharing stuff through social media profiles as well. PageRank is a way for Google to evaluate purely link authority, but there are a lot of other elements that Google look at as well.
There's brands that don't give bloggers paid work if they've got a bad PageRank.
Yeah, which is just ridiculous. It's not. It's basically 5 or 6 years out of date. Where the original PageRank algorithm, which dating back to 2000, was how Google created all their search results. We don't know what they've done in the last 10 years to change that. But what we do know is that PageRank now is far less important, and it's incredibly easy to manipulate PageRank. I only need one link from a high PageRank site, and I've got a massive PageRank. But I've got a website with one link. A website with one link isn't a very good website. So for these companies that say, oh, we'll only work with you if you've got a PageRank 3, what I'd suggest to you is, if you've got a PageRank 5 site, put a link to another website, give it a high PageRank, so that's all it'll take, and then abuse their mistake. It's not the best metric to be looking at. It's still worth acknowledging in that list, but not primarily.
Sorry, can I ask, do you have an example of a website that does that 60% really well?
Let me think. So
He's got to name one of his clients. Then.
Yeah. I'm not actually. I'll name one of my clients' biggest competitors. Money Supermarket.
Sorry?
Money Supermarket are one of the best SEO. blue widgets, then what I'd also do is I'd go to the stage of going to the blue widgets category page and actually adding fresh, original content to kind of displace, if you like, all the duplicate snippets that you've got underneath. So it's just sort of being playing around and doing stuff like that. And show Google you can trust it. So this is what we've just discussed about the authorship market. This is more about the page-specific element of the equation. This is just a standard plumbing website, and there's millions of websites like this all over the world. We view it like this. I've kind of touched on this with the textual world of Google, is that basically Google doesn't see that. That's not what Google sees at all. Google sees that. So essentially, it sees it more like a Word document. That's the sort of world that it operates in. It sees the interlinking between these are actually WordPress category pages, which is probably quite a good example of when. So this is built with WordPress. The areas covered are actually categories here, and every time this guy posts a new job in his gallery, he tags that within an area. And what he's naturally doing there is creating geographical keywords. So when somebody searches for plumber in the Lake District, he's got a page there which covers his plumbing work in the Lake District. So it's quite. Images that you don't want to be made public. What keywords do people use to find your content? So Google Keyword Tool, which I'm sure most of you have heard of, is a very easy way for you to research exactly what people are searching for. Start to use that sort of language in your blog posts. Never ever go to the point where you reduce the quality of what you're writing for search engines. That's not what we want.
Mention the exact match thing, because I tag the exact match thing, and I got into trouble.
So exact match. So that's
make sure your key phrase is an exact match rather than just because it makes sense in terms of how many people are actually.
Yeah. So exact match. Chicken recipes gets an enormous amount of search volume. The last thing you want to do if you were writing a page about a chicken recipe or a chicken curry recipe, whatever it is to have a title tag which is something completely unrelated to chicken recipes or something that's trying to be, I think what was I saying before was slightly inappropriate. One clucking hell of a chicken recipe or something like that. People try to be kind of jazzy and do these kind of snazzy titles, which is all very good, and it probably works more in an offline world. It's a newspaper headline style world, whereas in reality, what you should probably have put is chicken curry recipe by me, something a little bit more kind of relevant to what people are searching for. I'm getting a little tired, is that my time? Okay, guys, I've done about half of the presentation.
So what's your email address, please? So we can email
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll email this to you guys. I'll be hanging around if anybody's got any specific questions. It happens quite a lot in SEO that people, once one hand goes up, the questions get fired in, so there's a certain amount of expectation and that's going to happen. But like I say, if anybody's got anything specific that I haven't touched on, one thing that, I've covered quite a lot of the on-site stuff quite well. I think one of the things that we haven't discussed is how to build links and how to grow links into your site. So
I can't believe that's 60%.
Yeah, it's just exactly 60% is a conservative way of looking at it as well, to be honest. Links are still what will primarily drive your natural organic rankings.
So if you had a picture in the blog post, you could pin it to your Pinterest board,
and then it
tweet
looks
it,
yeah.
and then you can think about that.
Facebook it, yeah, put it on Tumblr, put it on everywhere because
if you set something up to automatically do that, does it have the same effect as you actually physically going and doing it yourself?
Yeah, it's just like, any automation is great, really, except if you